A wolf in sheep clothing. Juan Cortez. Mr. Cortez has a long history with breaking the law. He started when he was very young with drugs, selling drugs, being a gang member, and through the years he got better and better at being a criminal. Mr. Cortez spent many years in jails, and when he came out, he figured out how to be a smarter criminal. He figured out how to be a wolf in sheep clothing. He had a master plan coming out, and his master plan was that he will be a new citizen, the kind of citizen that's an outstanding citizen, and one that helps his fellow inmates by giving them a job at his new garage. A garage which he created or he built with the church money, a church that he started a relationship with from early in prison, with the idea of building this new sort of persona, this outstanding citizen. And he started this relationship early on with Pastor Unger that you heard in the stand testify, and used it to his advantage to cover up his real life of crime, to cover up his new plans. In prison, he also met Louis Grimes, which you heard here testify, that gave him the opportunity to make a plan, while he had him over for dinner at his house. And this plan was not a plan that required a lot of time. It was a plan contingent upon an opening of a window. And the opening of a window in the night in question came perfectly to Mr. Cortez. And what was the plan? The plan started as he came out of prison, and his garage wasn't doing well, and he figured he might extort some of the business owners in his city. And going to Mr. Schmidt's restaurant, trying to extort him, he didn't really get the answer he wanted. So he figured out he'd go back and come up with his plan together with Louis Grimes in order to scare him so that he would pay he'd pay for his life of crime. And as a result, a young man, Joseph Schmidt, lost his life. A young man that had a very he was a brilliant young man. He had his whole life in front of him, and Mr. Cortez killed him, cold-bloodedly killed him. But let's go back sort of to the events of the night. As you heard on the testimony, Mr. Cortez claims that he was at home the night in question, sitting here in the living room, in the couch, watching TV. Now, nobody saw or heard anything from Mr. Cortez between the hours of 8:30 and 9:50 p.m. 8:30 through 9:50 p.m. He was at home, alone, watching this TV right here, playing a basketball game loud and supposedly drinking beer, while his wife and the children were down here in the playroom, lower floor, on the couch, watching TV, watching a movie, also very loud. It doesn't take much to infer that all of these loud noises between the two TVs, it's very easy to sneak out. You got more than an hour and a half to go to from the Cortez home, pick up Louis Grimes over here, and go to Erman's restaurant. And so the distance is, say, about 7-8 miles. At speed limit, that shouldn't take more than 15 minutes to cover that distance. 15 minutes to cover the distance there. As a matter of fact, Louis Grimes testified here that he was picked up at the corner of, at his intersection at 9:20 p.m., between 9:15 and 9:20 p.m. And from the Cortez home to his house is about 5.5 miles. At speed limit, that would take exactly, no more, like between 10 and 15 minutes, which is perfect timing. From there into the Erman's restaurant, it wouldn't take more than 5 minutes in Mr. Cortez's black crotch rockets high-speed motorcycle. So this is what truly Mr. Cortez was doing the night in question. And the state has proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Cortez, in fact, was not home, but was committing this crime. And what is beyond a reasonable doubt? You know, I like to refer to, one time I was doing this jigsaw puzzle and with some friends, and you know, we were sort of building it out, and I think one of the friends had a little bit too much to drink, and a few of the pieces went missing. So as I was getting ready to finish the puzzle, everybody looked at it, and it was like 3 pieces missing. It was actually the Titanic, the big boat. And as the 3 pieces were missing, you know, everybody looked at it, and nobody had a single doubt what the jigsaw puzzle was showing. It was the Titanic boat. You didn't need the other 2 pieces to figure out what it was. So the same over here. You know, there's no doubt that Mr. Cortez left the house, went and picked up Louis Grimes. He testified to that and went to Herman's restaurant. And what happened at Herman's? So they walk in the restaurant. Herman Schmidt is standing by the kitchen. Mr. Grimes testified that he walked in, started to rob some of the patrons. Joseph Schmidt is standing right by the couches here at the entrance. And Mr. Cortez is standing by the door, right? Mr. Cortez is standing by the door. And as Joseph Schmidt sees him and recognizes him from the prior week coming to try to extort his father, and them not accepting this sort of protection that he was offering to the community, he shoots him. Mr. Cortez shoots him in the stomach, cold-blooded. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt that it was Mr. Cortez standing at that door shooting Joseph Smith. And what does Joseph Smith do? Right prior to being shot, he says, "It was you." He says that it was you, and there are witnesses, we had testimony about that. And then his father comes over as he's bleeding, dying, knowing that he's going to die. He also tells his father that it was Cortez, the guy from the week before, that shot him. I don't know what I don't even see any doubt that that was Cortez. Who else could it be? Who else had a motive to shoot him for recognizing him from coming the week before? Nobody else. It was Mr. Cortez. Then he goes back home and, you know, meets, Pastor Unger comes in, and it's perfect. It's the perfect sort of concoction and story that he was home watching this game, and he was using a pastor that he used throughout this whole time, from prison time all the way to the murder crime. He used Pastor Unger so that he could cover up his life of crime. And what's even more cunning is that he used his wife and his kids also in this story as pawns so he can cover up his life of crime. There's no doubt that Mr. Cortez committed this crime, and there's no doubt that he's guilty. And if you let him free, if you let a wolf free, he's going to eat more victims. So I ask you to find him guilty. Thank you.